right, let's see how this sounds. It would help a lot if I pulled out the mic. And then let's hear if music sounds good. Hold on 1 second while I fix this music. Audio mixer. Welcome, Dusty. This is Dusty, if you haven't met him before. He's a cute little cat. He's a sweet little man. Alright, we're good. Alright. Welcome to Noided at Night on Breezy Bee. Here we are live, coming to you from Denver, Colorado, west of the Rockies. Can't wait to hear from y'all tonight. So today we're going to be covering a couple of interesting Noided out articles, including this one about people using AI to create influencers with Down syndrome who sell nudes. I know, it's crazy. Act Blue's implosion demands further investigation. Republicans push to make Trump derangement syndrome a mental illness. So those are the three stories we're going to be covering today. If we have time, I might try to get into a little bit of a more of a different type of conversation with like a really good article, but we'll see what we have time for. So, all right. Let's announce to the world that we're live on Blue Sky, so that way people can join. All right. Let's lock in. Again, coming to you from west of the Rockies. Welcome to anyone from whatever time zone you're in, whether it's night, morning, day, whatever. Welcome in. People are using AI to create influencers with Down syndrome who sell nudes. Super gross. Brought to you from 404 Media. Highly recommend checking them out. They do some really good tech reporting, as you can see. Oops. I did it again. I don't know why so many places have, like, oh, free access to this post? Alright. If you guys are down, I'm going to go ahead and just sign up for this free access so that way we can go through this article, because I think this is a really important one. Let me move this over here. So I am not showing my personal email address on stream. So how's everyone doing tonight? Let's see that I got a couple people watching, so, you know, feel free to talk in the chat. Feel free to drop any, like, how you're feeling right now. I know things aren't going great in general with everything going on with Trump and cutting all of these administrations. It's pretty scary. So, I know not everyone's going to be doing great, but alright. Continue. Back. Alright. And we're back. Alright. People are using AI to create influencers with Down syndrome who sell nudes. Gross. A network of Instagram accounts is using AI to steal content from creators and deepfake their faces to make them look like they have Down syndrome. Wow. 404 Media was able to determine the accounts are linked because they reuse the same Instagram bios, videos, and in some cases the same OnlyFans competitors' pages where they monetize these videos. So it sounds like Like everything the right wing does and like everything capitalists do, that they tried to cut as many corners as possible so that way they could save money with these weird AI bots, and it ended up coming back to bite them in the ass. 404 Media has written multiple stories on the rapidly growing practice of people stealing content from real human creators and using AI to replace their faces with AI generated faces, posting that AI modified content to Instagram and funneling viewers to adult content platforms where they can be monetized. What started as just a few accounts quickly evolved into an entire industry with specialized tools, advertising strategies, and influencers who sell courses on how to create these fake influencers to get rich quick through what they call AI pimping. Super gross. AI does not make real people. It just makes facsimiles of what real people look like, and it's basically just a repetition of whatever's been fed into its own machine. So when we talk about this kind of thing like AI pimping, it is really gross. Newer accounts in recent months have started catering to increasingly specific niches and fetishes, including accounts of AI generated women with amputated limbs. The AI generated Down syndrome accounts are the latest and newest low for Instagram, which allows the rampant content that theft that enables this practice and is now fueling a non-consensual fetishization and monetization of fake people with disabilities. This is super gross. I think another thing to kind of point out here is some of the stuff that YouTube is doing as well. There was recently a story up here in Colorado where there was actually an influencer, a true crime influencer, who used AI to generate a bunch of their stories. And when they created a bunch of their stories through AI, a lot of people, because they sounded credible, bought the stories as being real. And eventually, a lot of people thought they were, enough people thought that they were real, that they did an investigation to find that these crimes never happened. So you have these slop accounts making entirely fictional like crime stories and publishing them, and then getting them recognized by legitimate outlets because they look that legitimate. And then you have porn like this that is essentially doing exactly the same thing and making slop that is stealing people's information and completely fooling people into thinking that they actually are looking at unique human generated content. The biggest one of these accounts I've seen is called Maria Doperi and has over 180,000 followers on Instagram. That account follows several other accounts with similar name conventions and identical videos, including one simply called Maria, which has over 39,000 followers. The face swaps are pretty convincing and hard to notice, especially when scrolling quickly through reels. But if you look closely, you can see the face sometimes has that too smooth quality that's common with AI image generation, as well as slight visual errors around the mouth, tongue, and teeth. So it sounds like one of the things that AI has always had problems with is the small details of like your hands or the small details of like the textures of your face. And it sounds like this porn is getting exactly that same issue as well. There are plenty of real influencers with Down syndrome on Instagram who share motivational or modeling content. These AI generated accounts are not trying to imitate that content, but rather they are focused on sexualizing the AI generated personas so that they can promote adult content they can then monetize. So again, this is something that is created just to monetize, to collect people's data, hardworking content creators' data, so that way they can feed it into an AI algorithm, disguise it as something else, and resell it to whoever will pay for it. They criticize they all criticize my Down syndrome until I decided to wear tight clothes. Text in one of Maria's videos says while she wraps a t-shirt tightly around her waist to show off her body. OnlyFan? Text in another Maria video says as she dances. No. Only down? Yes. Crying emoji, crying laughing emoji, crying laughing emoji. At some point, Maria also posted the exact same videos as Maria Dopari but with a different face. It appears that for these three videos posted between March 6th and March 8th, the Maria account accidentally used a face from one of its other personas called Lana, which posts under several usernames under some variation of Lana.down, the biggest of which has 43,800 followers. The Maria account then continued posting with the face it used regularly. In some cases, 404 Media was able to identify the original videos. Let's zoom in on this. On the left is a face swap face usually used by Maria Dupari. On the right, a different face used in the same video posted by a similar account called Maria. Ah, I see. So this is exactly what I was describing earlier. Essentially, people are taking users' content, uploading them into an algorithm, letting that algorithm decide what features people want to see the most, and then uploading that same content as their own. It's really similar to that true crime story that I talked about, where essentially there's these fake true crime stories that are being generated by a bunch of content creators on YouTube, and then it looks real enough that it fools real police departments, and then they investigate these quote unquote crimes only to find that it was just AI driven slop. Same idea. These are models that are essentially just algorithms that were fed by basically content thieves into an AI model that then created this other content that they used to basically steal money from people, because a lot of the people buying this AI content and paying money for it don't realize it's actually AI. Another account called Zelia Videos, which has 112,000 followers, says in its bio, "I'm special not because I have Down syndrome, but because I don't let it define my life." It links to the FanView page that does not disclose that it's AI generated, but many of the still images on the Instagram account clearly are. Additionally, several reels, which have been edited to make the women in the videos look like she has Down syndrome, were posted weeks early by a different account with an entirely different face. Let's see what these photos look like. Wow! Honestly, this feels super offensive. An Instagram account using face swaps to create a persona with Down syndrome on this side, and then on this side, the video that was pirated to create this image. Almost none of the Instagram accounts I've seen self-identify as being AI generated. Let me read that again. Almost none of the Instagram accounts I've seen self-identify as being AI generated. And judging by the comments on the videos, it appears that a lot of people believe they are real. However, unlike Instagram, OnlyFans has a strict policy against AI-generated content unless it features the verified creator and explicitly says it's made using AI. So these accounts can't post that content on that platform. They can and do monetize on FanView, which does allow people to monetize AI-generated content as long as it's labeled as such. Both Maria Dopari and Maria link out to the same FanView account, which states Maria has an AI face. Just a girl with a little something extra. Ha ha, the FanView bio says, which is written in French. Of course, they have to sneak in some transphobia, because we all know the classic insult of, "Oh, she's trans, she's a girl with a little extra." In this case, "Oh, she's AI, she's just a girl with a little extra," even though that extra means that she's not actually a person. Instagram bios for other accounts that promote the Maria persona are also written in French. Oops, hold on. Did not mean to do that. Alright. Instagram bios for other accounts that promote the Maria persona are also written in French and follow a similar formula, saying she is French, 23 years old, that she has Down syndrome and is neuroatypic. Atypic. Another account which produces the same kind of content on Instagram does disclose that it's AI generated and that the person behind it does not really have Down syndrome. It also links out to a Found View page which includes the following disclaimer. By purchasing you understand that I am an AI modified avatar. I do not actually have don't syndrome. I don't actually have don't syndrome. Not to be confused with Down syndrome. I have don't syndrome. A Reddit community called I won't say that out loud, was also started on February 8th and so far only includes 2 posts, both of which are by the moderator and are promoting content from the Maria persona. Reddit and the moderator of that community did not respond to requests for comment. Instagram, FanView, and none of the accounts I reached out to responded to a request for comment. So none of these places responded to a request for comment. And on top of that, it seems like all of this is super just irresponsible to allow. And the fact that people are actually making money off of it is really disgusting. This next article might be a little bit strange because it's from the Washington Examiner, but I think it's important because it does explain some of the recent troubles that ActBlue has had. If you don't know, ActBlue is the Democratic Party's fundraising platform. It's interesting because more of the time when you're working within the Democratic Party, you'll see ActBlue links than you'll see anything else. But yeah, let's get into the story. ActBlue's implosion demands further investigation. Too many ads. Hopefully that's not a TOS ad. TOS violation? You know what I'm trying to say. After raising huge amounts of money for left-wing candidates, I'm going to go ahead and do a little editorial here. After raising huge sums of money for left-wing candidates and committees, ActBlue, the most important online fundraising engine for the Democratic Party, has imploded. I put left-wing in quotes because a lot of Democrats are super far to the right and would be right-wingers in almost any other country. A series of resignations has been accompanied by accusations of nefarious financial dealings that prompted even the organization's unions to call for an outside investigation. House Republicans have been investigating ActBlue's suspicious activities for months. Senate Republicans should join them. The Trump administration should do everything in its power to speed up the findings of these inquiries and refer evidence of fraud to the Justice Department. While this is true, I highly doubt that the Trump administration is going to do any kind of crackdown on corruption, especially anything that's as partisan. Let me backtrack. They won't do this type of investigation if it's for a Republican. They might do it for a Democrat, but we'll have to see ultimately where their principles lie. Ultimately, though, they should do these investigations on everyone because ever since Citizens United, the amount of fraud within the fundraising arms and within the parties in general has been insane. ActBlue has served as an online clearinghouse for Democratic online fundraising since 2004. Organized legally as a political action committee, ActBlue acts as a one-stop processing center for donors who want to give to Democratic Party candidates and causes. It means small-dollar donors don't have to enter their credit card information on every entity they want to give money to. Instead, ActBlue allows them to enter their information one time and donate to as many candidates and committees as they would like. the more, the better. This also makes life easier for Democratic candidates who can outsource their online donation infrastructure to a reliable and friendly partisan powerhouse. ActBlue has helped Democrats beat Republicans in online fundraising. But something happened in 2018 that supercharged ActBlue's results. In 2016, Senate Republicans outraised Democrats overall by about 450 million to 350 million, with 250 million for the Democrats coming from ActBlue. But then in 2018, Senate Democrats were able to raise $600 billion, with $500 million coming from ActBlue, compared to just about $420 million for Senate Republicans overall. Nice. In just one cycle, Democrats have doubled their online take. Then, in 2020, Senate Democrats doubled their online take again to about $1.2 billion, with $1 billion of that coming from ActBlue. Unsurprisingly, House Republicans started investigating ActBlue's Federal Election Commission reports. They found anomalies including sudden and frequent donation from elderly citizens, uncharacteristic donation from voters registered for one party but voting for another, and unusually large donations from voters with little money. So while that does sound concerning, I would personally be a little bit more concerned with some of the Republican strategies that you can see out in the open, like how they do fund matching, especially for candidates that have huge money in the PACs that are backing them. House Republicans confirmed that unlike most online retailers, ActBlue does not require credit card, online credit, and gift donors to submit the CVV or credit card verification value. This security oversight opens the door for foreign donors to donate fraudulently to Democratic candidates and groups using names and addresses of unknowing American citizens. I don't know, chat. This sounds like kind of what Republicans are always trying to do, where they try to say that, oh, Democratic voters are just bought by Democratic PACs with a lot of money, and they're just buying the Democratic voters' vote. I see where this article is going. I want to give them the benefit of the doubt because I really do think that there is some fishy stuff going on with the Democratic Party. And especially with the way that, we see that small dollar donations are definitely the way to go in terms of what the Democratic Party says it's trying to get done. But then you see them being open to big money. Like, we just saw Chuck Schumer, and we just talked about him the other day. Chuck Schumer recently helped Republicans pass a disastrous budget bill rather than shut down the government for a couple of days or weeks or however long it would take to adjust it. I personally think that the reason that he did that was because some of his donors were pressuring him to keep the government open so that way they can keep making their money, which would make sense in that context. So let's go ahead and get back to, I don't mean for such a big tangent, let's get back to the ActBlue implosion. I do think it is related because I do think that there are fishy things going on with the Democratic Party, but this article might be coming from a bit of an untrustworthy place. ActBlue fervently denies that it is doing this or indeed doing anything else wrong, but the number of ActBlue officials willing to make such statements on the record is dwindling rapidly. Since February 21st, ActBlue has lost its customer service and partnership directors who had been with the organizations for more than a decade. Its chief revenue officer, the highest ranking legal officer, its assistant research director, a human resource official, and a senior engineer. The only remaining lawyer at the agency has now revealed that his access to internal email and files had been cut off, which prompted him to remind other employees, please be advised that we have anti-retaliation and whistleblower policies for a reason. No former Act Blue employees are talking to the press, but unions representing staff were unnerved enough by these events to fret about unsettling and disturbing growing pattern of volatility and toxicity stemming from current leadership. They went to call for outside investigator They went on to call for outside investigatory actions to better understand the current state of the organization. Okay, that makes sense. So it sounds like the unions that represent Act Blue are seeing a bit of a pattern with the ways that um, the current leadership is running things, and so it makes a lot of sense that an investigation would need to be done. We should still be we should still be we should be as vigilant as we can about these kinds of articles. That being said, this is really interesting in that typically you don't get unions stepping in unless there's like a real issue here. So it does seem like this is a legitimate concern, especially if the union is getting involved like this. Tariff threats. House and Senate Republicans agree. Representatives James Comer and Brian Stile already have the House Oversight and Administration Committees respectively looking into Act Blue malfeasance, and the Senate should do the same. Comer and Steele have requested data from the Treasury Department connected to Act Blue, and the Trump administration should ensure congressional investigators get what they need. Even if Act Blue did not actively solicit foreign donations, if it knowingly set up a system that could easily be abused, the public and FCC deserve to know. Okay. So that's a little bit more nuanced than I was expecting. I don't know. We'll have to see where the investigation lands, but it does sound like there are legitimate concerns around the way that Act Blue is run, and particularly around the way that leadership is being toxic and seems like they might actually be doing something sketchy. I don't necessarily know, and I don't think that they're soliciting foreign investors to invest in Act Blue, but I do think that there is probably something sketchy going on with leadership. Republicans push to make Trump derangement syndrome a mental illness. That's crazy. I included this one just because it's going to be a quick, little bit of a silly read, but it does get into some of the noided out serious topics that we need to talk about. 5 Republican Minnesota state senators are set to introduce a bill tomorrow that would classify Trump derangement syndrome, aka TDS, which I think is one of the dumbest shits I've heard, which they define as an acute onset of paranoia regarding the presidencies of Donald Trump as a mental illness, according to state documents. We should really be noided out about this. This is actually a little bit less silly than I thought it was. And the reason I say we should be noided out about this is because they're saying that being paranoid about Donald Trump is a mental illness, when really there's a lot of reasons to be paranoid about everything that's happening, especially for federal workers. Newsweek has reached out to state Senate minority and majority leaders for comment via contact form on Sunday morning. Throughout his presidential campaign, Trump and his top communication advisors, including current White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt and Communications Director Stephen Chung, have repeatedly accused many critics of having a severe case of Trump derangement syndrome, as Chung previously told Newsweek. The phrase has also been used by Republican politicians and talk show hosts, among others. The bill, seeking to classify TDS as a mental illness, raises concerns about the politicization of mental health diagnoses, which could be used to misappropriate care, diminish other mental health concerns, and suppress dissent and political expression. So this is something that I am also really worried about, because The ways that we pathologize mental health in this country is significantly different from other countries, and I think that the way that we use it really reinforces a biological essentialism that a lot of Americans have. Just look at the example of ADHD or autism. You'll see a lot of ads that are like, oh, I didn't know I have ADHD until I saw X unique thing that I do mirrored in this advertisement. Or I didn't know I had YZ until I saw it mirrored in this advertisement. And when we do this, we are essentially saying that you have this, so you need to do this to function normally within our society. And when you have that essentialism of you need X, Y, and Z to function normally in our society, you have a lot of situations where it's easy for like a Republican to say, oh, you're just not normal. You just don't fit in with our society. You have XYZ, whether that XYZ is ADHD, autism, or now Trump derangement syndrome, which doesn't even make sense as a mental illness, but let's keep going. On Monday, the bill is scheduled to be introduced and read before the Minnesota Senate's Health and Human Services Committee. Text says the bill has been available online since Thursday. The five co-sponsors, State Senator Glenn Grunenhagen, Justin Eichhorn, Nathan Wessenberg, Steve Drzowski, and Eric Lucero, say that TDS should be added to the definition of mental illness and incorporated into the state's definition through amended statutes. Republican legislators write that symptoms may include Trump-induced general hysteria, which produces an inability to distinguish between legitimate policy differences and signs of psychic pathology in Donald J. Trump's behavior. I think they mean psychological pathology, but I don't know. They further state that these symptoms can manifest as intense verbal hostility towards Trump and overt acts of aggression and violence towards supporters. In other words, they're defining TDS as any kind of dissent or protest from Trump. Definitely be noided out about this. The co-sponsors say the term should be included in state statutes relating to mental illness. Democrats and others contend that TDS is not a legitimate condition and argue that no clinical data supports its existence. They say instead it is a political label used to dismiss criticism of the president. Some also point out that TDS could be used to apply to diehard Trump supporters who defend him uncritically regardless of facts or consequences. Right on the money with that one. This is exactly what it is. It's a way to suppress dissent. It's a way to make sure that Trump doesn't have anyone protesting him. It's a way to be even more fashy than they were before. The Democratic Farmer Labor Party holds a narrow one-seat majority in the upper chamber. Meanwhile, the Minnesota House of Representatives is evenly divided, with both the DFL and Republicans controlling 67 seats each. Just a side note here, the Democratic Farmer Labor Party is the party that Tim Walz is associated with, and really they're a lot more progressive than like the mainstream Democrats. So now that I'm reading a little bit more about this story, I'm not as surprised that they're coming out with such a good take. Ed Krasenstein, an anti-Trump influencer with 1 million followers on X, formerly Twitter, wrote on Sunday, Minnesota Senate Republicans just introduced a bill to classify Trump derangement syndrome as a mental illness. Should Minnesota Democrats should introduce a bill to classify MAGA as a cult. If you support the first bill but find the second one offensive, then congratulations, you're part of the problem. Fair. Neither of these are mental illnesses. They're just a way to like punish dissent from this fascist government and fascist Democratic Party while we're at it. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt wrote on X in February Trump derangement syndrome is causing Democrats and the media to oppose President Trump's common sense efforts to cut billions of dollars in waste, fraud, and abuse from our federal government. They can't stand that we have a president who actually delivers on his promises. Just being so confidently wrong, that's crazy. He's literally caused us to lose money rather than save money with things like Doge and like the way that they're cutting waste. DFL spokesperson Darwin Forsyth told Newsweek this is why Minnesota Republicans have lost every statewide election in recent memory. Every time they get an opportunity to try to improve Minnesotans' lives, they instead double down on an agenda that caters to their party's most extreme right wing activists. What happens next? The bill is scheduled to be read at the DFL led committee on Monday. Typically, bills in the Senate will need to undergo committee review and then a vote to either reject the bill or move it to the Senate floor. So, there's a few steps left before they can go ahead and either approve or deny the bill. Hopefully it gets denied. Like I said, I really think that this is just a way for them to censor free speech. It's really funny that the Republican Party calls themselves the party of free speech, but then does things like this. Trump derangement syndrome? Really? And then this is the same party who disappeared a student from a Columbia campus just the other week. So we're not in a great place when it comes to free speech. This is scary. I have one more article, but being honest, it's already getting late, and I really don't feel like staying up too much longer, so I think I'm just gonna end it here. I don't see that many people in chat, so this feels like as good a place as any to stop. Um, yeah, don't get too stay vigilant as much as you can, and don't get too noided out there. See y'all later.